Hey guys, welcome to the RAMZPAUL show. We met our target yesterday of $50, so we have a bonus show today. Thank you so much for your support. I'm excited to be here. It's a beautiful day in the Ozarks, nice and tranquil. It's not like LA. I love it. If you live in a place without diversity, it's heaven. That's heaven, is to get away from diversity. No, diversity is not a strength. It is a weakness. And the people who said otherwise were lying. But it's great to be here. It's actually got a little bit hot. I already have the air conditioning on. I was trying to hold off on that forever. But yeah, I had a breakdown, turn on the air. So it'll probably be on until mid-September. It stays pretty hot here during the summer. Although I live up on a mountain, so I'm about 5 degrees cooler than Fayetteville. And it's not as humid. It's like physics. When you get higher up, it's not as humid. So that's good. Guys, thank you so much for being here. If you want to interact with the show, give questions or comments, there's SuperChats on YouTube. Rumble has Rants. There's Powerchat, the link below, and there's Streamelements. And I'll probably look through them as the show goes on or at the end. And as a reminder tonight, if you're part of the Substack, please join the Substack. We have our weekly roundtable at 7 p.m. is to get together a community. It's a lot of fun. And then tomorrow night, Wednesday night, we have the Wednesday wrap up with Z-Man. And we're going to be talking about propaganda in the TV shows and movies. I think that's going to be great. That's rapidly becoming one of my favorite shows. Z-Man and I, we seem to riff off each other really well. So that is must see. And then, of course, on Friday is my Hillbilly wrap up. I think I call that evening. So check that out. I'm looking forward to that. And as always, I forget to put this up sometimes. If you want to write me in real life, I appreciate that. Get my address. I'm at Paul Ramsey, Fayetteville, Arkansas, P.O. Box 8093, and that's the zip code 72703. And I'll put that up for each of you. I always love to hear from viewers and stuff, so thank you very much. All right, we'll just get into it. I think obviously the big news is the insurrection, the foreign insurrection with people from another country invaded from Mexico mostly, and other countries are waving their flag against the United States flag and burning cars, looting stores, trying to murder police officers. And Trump has responded by sending the Marines to protect ICE. So this obviously is not a sign of a healthy society, but this is very predictable what happens when you have diversity. People, they don't feel they're not part of the same nation, right? For the most part, the Mexicans that live there, they're not part of my nation. They're an alien nation. They're just on our territory. So they have their homeland. They need to go back to their homeland. As simple as that. And I'm sorry, their homeland is shitty, but it's mostly shitty because of them. And tough shit. They have no right to destroy our homeland. So I think more and more people are starting to see that. And we'll talk about it. But the optics have been bad for the rioters, waving the Mexican flag and setting cars on fire. Again, this isn't 2020. This is 2025. Even white suburban women who believe whatever their TV tells them, they don't like the image of some Mexican guy waving the Mexican flag, setting a car on fire. That's not good optics. And I think we're getting people more red-pilled by the day because of this. So they talk about other people on the internet red-pilling people. It's actually the rioters that are red-pilling people at a huge rate. And I think they realize that, and the media is trying to desperately try to control the coverage because they understand it doesn't look good. But speaking of the media, the insurrectionist, here's an example. They actually attacked a Channel 4. In Channel 4, MSNBC, they are anti-white, anti-American, they're for illegal immigration. But it doesn't matter. These people, the rioters, are so stupid, they attack it anyway.
We don't give a fuck. fucked up Donald J. Trump. He created all this shit. When it happened, the police.
Now, this guy, he's not Hispanic. He's a black guy. Probably, I would assume if you did an IQ test, he's close to mentally retarded. He's not rioting for any particular reason. He doesn't care about Mexicans being sent back to Mexico. These people, it's an opportunity. When they see things break down, they see this as a green light to rob, sexually assault women, break things. This is in societies, because I'll show you an example of a high trust society where you don't even hardly need police. Where I live, I hardly ever see police, but people don't just start going around trying to set fires and loot and kill. But a lot of people, unless you have the firm boot of the police over them, this is their default behavior. And so in this case, this is this guy.
The car could have been fucked up. Donald J. Trump is a moron. So the bottom line is, we can't give up. We got to keep fighting. We got to stand up for the right of the people.
So people are laughing at him because they know he's a druggie.
Hispanic people right now, they need all of us to stand up because we got corruption in the White House. Now how the fuck he gonna lock us up and he got 34 felonies himself? The president got 34 motherfucking felonies. Donald Trump. So ain't that a bitch?
So they're all climbing over the media thing. I can't understand what that guy's saying because he's stupid and probably drugged out too. But it's just a little bit of irony that is what is happening. And I just mentioned a high trust society. Let me just show you this here. It's just amazing when you see what a high trust society is versus the one we live in. So let's just take a look at that. And sometimes we live with so much diversity, we forget what could have been and is in some places where they don't have diversity. So this is a small town in Norway with zero diversity.
I'm an American in Norway, and I live in a village with a population of only 300. And these are some cool things that just make sense. Number 1, honey on tap. Number 2, self-service grocery stores without any employees. It's kind of shocking. It feels almost a little bit eerie when you go for the first time.
Now, you can't do this with a diverse population. They would immediately see you as a sucker and rob everything blind. And this isn't even just Norway. There's a small town in Kansas, Lindsborg. I went there probably 15 years ago now. Maybe, yeah. There was an event there. I met some great people. It was a Swedish town, established, small town, just south of Salina, I believe, about 60 miles south of Salina. Beautiful little town, but they had like a cafe where you would go in, get your own coffee and get your own Danish or whatever. And it was an honor system. You paid for it. Again, you can't do that once you get diversity in because they don't understand that. They're like, oh, you're a sucker. I can just steal everything.
Number 3, the prices at the gas station are the same year round. It's about $6 a gallon or 20 kroner per liter. So in Norway, we rely a lot on the honor system. Where we live, there are a lot of day cabins and saunas and canoes that are completely free for anyone to use as long as you just take good care of it. Farmers markets are empty and just have signs saying, please pay with your phone, which might be shocking for a foreigner. I love living here, but what do you think? Would this work in your country?
Yeah, well, it would. If it has worked in my country, the United States, but since we started importing all these people, no, it can't work because this can only work with honorable people. And not all groups are the same when it comes to honor. So this is what we could have. There's no reason we couldn't have this. But in our country, because of the people that decided to destroy our homelands, not just the United States, but Canada, Ireland, you name it. And here's some more footage of the insurrectionists. And against these people, it's not political. They just see a breakdown in law and order. So they're looting an Apple store, the usual suspects. There's no sense of honor with these people. They shouldn't be in the country. They should be in their homelands. They could be running through the jungle with spears and being happy, but they shouldn't be here. So I won't watch the whole video, but you get the idea. So as long as the police aren't there, they're going to act in a savage manner because that's what they do. That is what they do. And it's sad. We shouldn't have to live like that. And we didn't always live like that, even in Southern California. Before the mass invasion happened, California and LA was a beautiful city, great climate. It was a golden state. And here's Southern California in the 1950s. I mean, this is a stock photo, but this was what it was. It was like a 90% white city, low crime, beautiful people, sense of honor. And now you see just people running loose, attacking, looting. And it was brought in. And it was brought in with a false premise that everyone in the world is the same. There's no differences in people except for skin color. But that's not true. There are differences in people. This is why countries are radically different. So this is the situation we have in not only Southern California, but many of our cities in general. And this is why we cannot tolerate this anymore, and we need to get our homeland back. Other countries can do that. Israel can do that. We can do that. We don't have to tolerate these. And here's the Mexican president has called on Mexicans to protest in the United States. And this is ironic because Americans are forbidden to protest in Mexico. That's illegal. And so we should cut off all aid to Mexico. I think we should get tough with Mexico. This would be like if a bunch of Americans with American flags were in Mexico City, illegal. So imagine a bunch of illegal Americans that they're in Mexico illegally. They are taking welfare, stealing resources, and because they're trying to be deported, the Americans run out in the streets of Mexico City with American flags and start setting cars on fire and throwing stones at the Mexican police. And meanwhile, the president of the United States supports them and encourages that to happen. That's what's happening, the equivalent. So, yeah, we need to get tough on Mexico and stop that immediately. A very sad situation that is being happening here. And besides the Apple Store, the looting is happening to other stores. And again, most of these people looting they look to me to be black, not Hispanic. There might be some Hispanic.
Look at the security guard.
Okay, they love tennis shoes. That's just like gold to them.
Look at the security guard.
I guess there's a few Hispanics. There's someone running in with the invader flag, a Mexican flag. Yeah, and there's some black guy still with a bunch of stuff he's stealing. And again, he doesn't really care if Mexicans are deported. It's just an excuse to loot. So, yeah, these people don't belong in the country. We can't have a country with these people. We should be separate from these people. And if they can't feed themselves, I don't really give a shit. That's nature's way of dealing with them. And that was the biggest mistake we made, having that here. So, yeah, this is diversity in the action, in action. All right, let's do another video of a guy here. And this isn't all illegals. This is an important point to make. And let me just show you this here.
How long did you serve?
2005.
Whatever you were saying, you were
So this guy's waving, a Mexican guy waving a Mexican flag.
U.S. Marine?
I'm a Marine, proud to serve, baby.
How long did you serve?
2005.
What do you have to say about President Trump sending
That's
National
not
Guard?
right, bro. You know what I mean? This country and this.
This reminds me of the problem Rome had at the end when they started to put barbarian troops in their military. The troops became more loyal to their fellow barbarians than they did Rome. And so here we have a guy, we had the theory, oh, he could just be like a white guy. We'll put him in the Marines and he'll just be like one of us. So he's a foreigner fighting our wars. But when push comes to shove, he's going to stand up for his people, and his people aren't Americans, they're Mexicans. And I don't have to guess, you can see that because he's not waving an American flag that supposedly he gave an oath to serve. He's waving a flag of a foreign power.
State runs with immigrants. You know what I mean? I'm a son of parents that came from Mexico. You know?
So this guy is actually a citizen. So this isn't just illegals. This problem goes a lot deeper. And even a lot of Matt Walsh, Jack Posobiec, and Charlie Kirk, I deleted the tweet because Nick Fuentes showed they all tweeted the exact same thing, but it turns out they were retweeting each other, so it's a little bit different. But they all said word for word, we need to deport legal and illegal immigrants, and I agree with this. So this man, I don't care if he's a United States citizen, his citizenship should be stripped, and he should be sent back to Mexico. He doesn't belong in our country.
You know what I mean? It's not right. It's not right. You could take the criminals away. We want to take hardworking people for, man. That's not cool. Not cool, bro.
So he needs to go back to his home, Mexico. That's the flag he's waving. He doesn't belong in America. I would strip him of his citizenship. He's not part of my nation anyway. He's part of an alien nation living in my homeland. And his parents moved to Mexico, to the United States, because their people create shitty conditions. They don't want that. So they want to be in a white country where they have good conditions. And even the original immigrants, ironically, sometimes are more peaceful, and their gratitude. They understand the shithole they left. And then it's the kids that become radicalized like this. We see this in Europe with a lot of Muslims too. So this is an example of a guy. It's just not illegals. We need to get people like him out. I don't give a shit about the Constitution at this point. We're in an emergency. He needs to be expelled. It's just that simple. Here's the media is desperately trying to do damage control. Someone put up a funny montage, and so we'll take a look at this here. So let's just take a look at this.
Police say that they have it under control. Carrying a flag is not illegal, as you know. What did happen in 1992 was so different from what we're seeing now. I mean, that was a real riot.
Video after video has shown that these agents are the ones provoking protesters and also making up, aggression by these protesters that later video shows people were not aggressive.
We are having an administration that's targeting peaceful protests, people that are there to protest. The president is sending the National Guard because he doesn't like the scenes. He doesn't like the scenes of people peacefully protesting.
See, these are how these people lie.
Unrest is isolated. LA is home to millions of people, most of whom are having a normal day here on Sunday.
You know, you've heard reports that there are riots on the streets of Los Angeles. That is not what's happening
No, don't believe your lying eyes. So they want to try to censor this video
across the city of Los Angeles.
Governor Newsom's right. There wasn't anything like a riot happening on Friday, Saturday.
We just witnessed a protester thanking a National Guardsman for his service here in California.
LAPD, by most estimates, had this under control last night.
No, I don't think the National Guard is needed now. Things in LA are calm. There was a protest that got a little unruly. Late at night.
There have been no violence where anybody that was protesting hit anybody, shot anybody, threatened anybody. Nothing has happened.
What is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn.
That was funny. Just watching, that's going to go down as a meme. They're just having fun watching cars burn. It reminds me of the Summer of Love, the BLM in 2020, when that black group was burning, looting cities, and the black reporter, this is a peaceful protest, and you see a Wendy's restaurant up in flames. That meme. This is a new meme.
Most of those demonstrators were very peaceful. They were chanting, they were shouting. People were driving by, honking.
So yeah, the media is saying, don't believe your lying eyes. They just like to see, they're just having fun seeing car burn, and it's mostly peaceful. So don't worry about that. So that was a great montage that they put together. And this shows how the media lies. It's hard now. This is what the media hates because everyone has their own phone now, right? Everyone has their smartphone and you can take images. And years ago, that was the case. So the media is having a hard time controlling this because they could try to lie to you because they want to push a narrative. It's just peaceful people protesting, when in fact there's Mexicans waving the Mexican flag, throwing bricks, setting cars on fire. There's mostly a black population now looting tennis shoes and Apple Store. And they don't like those images to go out because it contradicts their narrative they're trying to say. All right, let's get some more update on Homeland Security with this.
Well, I was saying, leaving. Well, as a matter of fact, we got over 100 teams out today enforcing immigration law, and we're going to flood the zone. I've said for a month, sanctuary cities, you don't want us to arrest these bad guys that you just listed out. We could arrest them in safety and security of the county jail, but they won't let us into jail. They release them into the community, which means we got to send a whole bunch of teams in the community to find this dangerous person that don't want to be found. So sanctuary cities are going to get exactly what they don't want: more officers in the communities and more officers in work site. We can't arrest them in jail or arrest them in the community. If we can't.
Look at this, just one Mexican flag after another, not one American flag. These people have no loyalty to this country. They shouldn't be here.
Arrest them in the community, we're going to increase worksite enforcement operation. We're going to flood the zone. And based on what LA is doing right now, we're going to continue to flood the zones. We're going to be there tonight. We're going to be there tomorrow. We're going to be there every day in the next 4 years, arresting public safety threat illegal aliens. We're not going to apologize for doing it. So we're not going anywhere, Jesse. We're going to do the job the American people voted Donald Trump in office for. We're going to make America safe again, one illegal alien criminal at a time. And this is another reason we need the big, beautiful bill passed so we can hire more ICE agents, get more technology, and help us find these people. Look, we got over 20 million illegal aliens in this country. We got less than 5,000 deportation officers. We're outnumbered. You want more criminals taken off the street? You want more efficient operations? Then they need to pass this bill and fund ICE and fund the Border Patrol to keep President Trump's promise to the American people.
So it sounds like the Trump administration's still good, and they're not being deterred. And that's what you have to do. You have to go after these people. And here was another situation of the protests, the peaceful protests, as the media is trying to lie and call it. Here we go.
Baby, go.
So anyway, this lady, she says she has babies in her car, and these savages are, you see they're arson and they're attacking. So yeah, that's there we go. That is what we see right now in LA. And let's see here. Let's look at the head of the teachers union. This is why we need to disband this. And this lady, I doubt she can read. And I'm not joking either. She couldn't read War and Peace or something like this. So here she is. This is the head of the teachers union.
We the people! We the people! We!
Some just angry thing.
We the people! Yeah! All of us have that right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of justice.
Yeah, so there's another deportation candidate. There's a lot more that don't really belong here and do not provide a nice society. There is one example. Now, the left understands, not like that drunk black guy, but or the looters, but the people that are trying to fund a lot of this, they understand that they have a bad optics problem. And even the suburban white ladies that believe what the TV tells them, they're starting to get a little uncomfortable seeing Mexicans running around with Mexican flags, setting cars on fires. And they're trying to change it. Carry a U.S. flag if you're protesting. Far left extremists on Reddit have been urging people to bring or give out U.S. flags because they're concerned that the public seeing the reality of the insurrection driven by violent loyalty for foreign policies is bad PR. So they're trying to tell them, the people that are the usual suspects, what I call the snake handlers. You have the snakes and you have the snake handlers. The snake handlers are saying, our snakes are getting uppity. We got to tell them to use the American flag. Because the stupid middle-aged soccer moms out there, they may start to get confused that maybe diversity really isn't our greatest strength, and that's not going to be good. So that is, they could be looking to change that from an optics point of view. And let's just take a look at this. This is more about the
Marines are being mobilized. We have breaking news now from the Pentagon. CNN can now report that roughly 500 Marines are being mobilized in response to the protests in Los Angeles.
And this is a significant escalation from President Trump, who had activated National Guard troops over the weekend without Governor Gavin Newsom's consent. In this new move, active duty military members are being deployed as a show of force against U.S. citizens. CNN's Natasha Bertrand is live for us at the Pentagon.
Well, a lot of them aren't citizens. They're illegal aliens, and they're engaged in an insurrection.
Natasha, what are you learning?
Well, Brianna, this is something that Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth had previewed over the weekend. He said that if necessary, he would deploy the Marines to Los Angeles to help federal agents with handling the protests there. And it appears now that these Marines, according to our sources, they have been mobilized. These 500 Marines, a full Marine battalion based out of 29 Palms, California, which is just outside San Bernardino, about an hour away from Los Angeles. They have been mobilized and they are gearing up to go and help ICE agents as well as other federal officials deal with these protests in Los Angeles. Importantly,
the interesting thing is how reliable are those Marines, or that a lot of the Mexicans, with like that one guy we saw where their loyalty is actually to their ethnic homeland, not America. Again, Rome ran into this problem, and this is a problem when you start to dilute the military. And the Biden administration realizes, and this is why they were trying to purge like the white officers. So this is going to be another sign we're headed to a civil war, internal civil war, if the official military becomes unreliable because of a racial conflict.
We're going to be bolstering as well the National Guard, guardsmen and women who have been activated in Los Angeles by President Trump. But as you said, it is a significant escalation of the president's use of the military as a show of force against these protesters. It's really not clear, you know, the last time Marines were deployed to help essentially with riot control, though it's unclear at this point just what their actual tasking will be. Typically, if they are deployed to these situations, it is expected that they will operate in much the same way that the National Guard does, doing things like perimeter security, maybe some crowd control. But the rules of engagement here, we are told, are still being finalized, and Defense Department lawyers are also looking at the kinds of rules of engagement these Marines will have.
Well, the people that are setting cars on fire, that they should be considered enemy invaders, and I support them being shot on sight. This is an invasion. It's like an enemy pouring over. We can't tolerate this behavior. Now, if you want to protest peacefully, that's fine. But people that are throwing stones, attempted murder, and setting cars on fire, or looting, this is where you need to use deadly force to stop it immediately. And it would stop it immediately.
As they encounter protesters possibly on the streets of Los Angeles. But again, this coming at a very, very tense moment with the governor.
See, what they're trying to do is conflate protesting. When most people, when they think protesting, is you have a sign and you're on the sidewalk and do a chant. That's okay. But they're conflating that with these people that are setting cars on fire and throwing rocks, looting stores, the Apple store, the tennis store, attacking that woman in her car with her babies, and there's fire in the background. That's not protesting, that's a riot.
Of California suing the Trump administration over, of course, the deployment of the National Guard by President Trump against his will there in California.
Well, if Newsom can't control his own state, then this is what happens. So, yeah, not a good look, but this is where we are right now. And, I got a couple of rants, so thank you, guys. I really do appreciate that. Hill Ust. Sorry, I probably got your name wrong. This isn't a resurrection. It's a breakaway province and open rebellion defying reclamation of sovereignty and law and order. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. There are some parallels to our first Civil War because the South became very separate from the North and they wanted to break away from the Union. And I think states should have that right, by the way. I supported the Confederacy. They had the right. If you join the Union, the states should have the freedom to leave the Union. And I believe the same thing in this situation. If California wants to leave the Union, I'd be fine with that. It'd make the United States actually a lot stronger. And then we could cut off California and make sure the people don't come into the United States and pester us in our communities and let them spiral down into their shithole eventually because they'd run out of everything. I support that. But this is what happens. This is when you get civil war conditions, is when you have multiple nations. And again, these Mexicans are not part of our nation, into one country. So the country is the United States, but we have multiple nations that have very little in common. So yeah, that is the situation there. I meant to say this isn't an insurrection. Does Bass know this? Probably not. They're just throwing spitballs in this class. They are way too comfortable. Time for a teacher to show who's in charge. Yeah, most of the people there's various levels of the rioters. You have the lowest level druggy types that we saw with that black guy and the people looting the shoe store and the Apple store. They don't really give a shit about anything. They're pretty savage and they will act that way if they're given the opportunity. It could be a hurricane. It could be a earthquake. It doesn't matter. They're going to take advantage of a breakdown in law and order to commit crimes. They have no honor. They're not like civilized people. They shouldn't be treated as such. They shouldn't be in our midst, by the way. So those people, it's not an insurrection. They can't think. They have no idea. They're too stupid. They don't really live much above like an animal. They just live on the moment. So don't try to give there's not like some political theory they're running it under. But at a higher level, we're seeing that this country really doesn't have much in common anymore, the various sections. And there maybe should the United States break apart. I've often predicted that it will, probably in the 30s or 40s, start to break apart. Thomas Chittum, who I have often referenced, that book he wrote in the 90s, was very prophetic. He predicted a lot of this stuff would happen, especially in the Southwest, because if you replace the white population in LA with Mexicans, it becomes Mexico. And then they start like, well, wait a minute. Why should we give our loyalty to the United States? We saw this early years ago. They like the Mexican soccer team would play the United States soccer team in LA, and all the spectators were rooting for Mexico because they may be American citizens, but they have no loyalty to this country. I'm not picking on just Mexicans. I would say Ben Shapiro's the same way when it comes to Israel. He doesn't have any loyalty to America. His loyalty is to Israel. So we have a lot of people from alien nations here that do not have loyalty to our country. Now, they like being in this country because they can't create those conditions in their country, but that's what it is. So we're starting to see a breakup a little bit. And the next step you're going to see is people, sections of the country that become de facto independent, meaning the American flag may still fly over California, but the local state just starts ignoring a lot of the federal rules. In fact, we're seeing this now. It's not the future. This is the problem. We had an election. Donald Trump was elected. The federal government controls immigration. We have a right to evict illegal aliens. And the state, California, Gavin Newsom and the officials there are defying the federal rule. Again, it goes back to the original Civil War. So that's a problem. That's a problem when the states start to defy the feds. And that's what we have here. All of a sudden now, all these Democrats are states' rights issues. They believe in states' rights. So it's interesting. It's interesting. We've kind of come a full circle. I I tend to be a states' right guy, so I'm okay if California wants to break off. We can stop these Californians from getting back in our country and fucking up our country. But so I'm okay with that happening, but it won't happen because they know that. So what's going to happen is they'll fly the American flag, but they'll start to ignore policies they don't like from the federal government. And then that will start to spread to other states where the policies will start to be ignored. And that's a precursor to a civil war situation. That's an important milestone when we see this. And the military being called out to try to hold on to the population, that is another milestone to a civil war. Biden rang the death knell for the United States. We are never getting the 10 million plus people that they allowed in this country out of it. There's no fixing it. Well, I hate to be pessimistic, but I think it's going to be very difficult because you remember, we're not even talking rounding up legal immigrants or even most illegal. All they're trying to do right at this point is just to evict the criminal. I mean, they're all criminals because they're illegal, but the ones that are violent criminals are trying to deport. And even then, Gavin Newsom in California doesn't want violent, criminal, illegal aliens to be deported. So it's going to be a tough road to go forward. I have no doubt about that. I mean, there's some ways you could theoretically do it, mostly economic, make it illegal to hire illegals. If you do that, you lose your business. Deny all welfare, no Medicaid to illegals, but you saw the screaming about that. You have to cut off all the welfare, don't food, or it's like wildlife. You don't feed or water them, otherwise you become dependent. Say no welfare, no jobs, and a lot of them will self-deport. But it's going to be very difficult. And it's a sad situation. It's too bad people didn't listen to people like myself or Pat Buchanan or other people years ago saying this is going to be an issue, or Thomas Chittum, you don't want an important alien culture into our country. This is not good. These assholes that are saying this is enriching, they're fucking liars. They have lied always. That's what they do. They lie. We should understand that, but we didn't understand that. We believe them. And now it turns out all the supposed racists turned out to be right. They were all right. This is what has happened. These people, they haven't magically turned into white people and support the United States. That has not happened in some cases, but in majority it hasn't happened. They're out there waving their Mexican flags because they want to keep violent Hispanic criminals in this country. Not that they like violent criminals, it's just they consider them their kin, not Americans. So it all comes down to race because it's biologically, I mean, it's biology. So that's where we are right now. Now, I think Trump is doing this as best as he can, and there is some good news here. So let's take a look at this. Breaking, Department of Justice is launching an investigation into the DNC regarding payments made to the rioters in LA. Now, this is where we can get at it. This is where you could consider it an insurrection. So again, there's levels. There's the top level, which are the Soros types, the Democrats, that they themselves aren't throwing bricks, but they're funding it, right? Then you have the next level that provides the bricks, that provides the logistics and so forth. And then you have the meth heads and the gangbangers and all that are functionally stupid, but you can use them as pawns. So that's the levels. So we do need to get at the top level, and I would use RICO to go after these people and send them to prison to shut off paying for these riots. Because as we saw in 2020, a lot of those riots by BLM, they were AstroTurf. They were being paid. For example, before a riot, a pallet of bricks was delivered on the street. Well, where in the hell did the pallet of bricks come from, right? Because you're wondering, you see these people throwing bricks, and you have to ask, well, where did they get a brick? I mean, did they go to the Home Depot beforehand? Hey, I need some bricks because I'm rioting today. That doesn't, who does these? Again, these people, they have a mind like an animal. They can't think in the future. They can't plan to go to the store and buy bricks. They just, when you walk around the street, do you just see bricks lying around? No. So what happens? They're just showing up. They're drunk or high, and then someone brings a pallet of bricks for them to throw. We need to go after the people that are bringing those pallet of bricks and put them in prison a very, very long time. And that is what is happening. And the civil unrest in America, which is not new, it's been going on for a while because, again, diversity can't work. It's an unstable situation. And they're understanding this even in other countries who are looking at this.
If you come to the United States to study, you should be trying to learn from American values and appreciate the great country that America is. And you shouldn't be organizing anti-American protests or trying to start movements that have anti-American values. There's a few things happening here. It's to do with intersectionalism, and there are groups on the left, of the political left of America, who have found that aligning with these guys will help them get votes and get into power. And because so many are radicalized and activists as a day job and activists as a habit, this was another opportunity to disagree with Trump and to get into a political battle with the right wing of the United States, who's now in power.
So, and this, I think they were talking about the protest on the concerning Israel, but then this also expands to the in general. So what's happening in Los Angeles isn't just chaos, it's calculated attack on America. And I do think there is something to that. And Stephen Miller, who I like, he has brought this up too. Let's just take a look at this here. And we have this stupid lady that's a mayor of, she's like a DEI person. Here she is here.
We need to stop the raids. This should not be happening in our city.
Well, that's not for you to decide. Immigration is controlled by the federal government. Donald Trump was elected. This is not up for you to decide that illegal aliens should be allowed to stay here, Karen.
It is not warranted, and it does the only thing it does is contribute to chaos. This was chaos that was started at Washington, D.C. On Thursday, the city was peaceful. On Friday, it was not because of the intervention of the federal government.
All right. So that's her argument is that the government trying to enforce its immigration laws is their fault, right? So, and Stephen Miller, he wrote this well. The threat being made here by Mayor Bass is explicit. The mayor of LA is effectively saying the mob violence caused by the mere presence of ICE in the city and the violence against ICE will not stop unless federal law enforcement is withdrawn from the city. This is a definition of insurrection. Yeah. I mean, this going back to 1860, this was what it was. The South was saying, we're quitting. What I give the South, actually, to be fair, the South was more honorable, and I supported the Confederacy. I think the Confederacy was on the right. What the South did, they didn't defy this federal government first, right? This is what's happening here. The South at least had the decency to say, we're quitting. We're quitting. The United States, this is a collection of states that we voted to join initially, right? Each state had an election. We want to join the United States. And they said, hey, our state, it's a democratic process. We voted, we want to leave the United States. So the South first said, hey, we are quitting the United States. We're forming our own country. So technically, I don't even think that's an insurrection because they quit. But right here, I don't think California has officially quit the Union, have they? Have they voted to quit the United States? They haven't done that. So if they're part of the United States, they have to follow the law. So she is engaging in insurrection. LA and California leadership demand the right to illegally import unlimited foreigners into America and to control American entire immigration policy by fiat. And if they are not permitted, they will allow mobs to target ICE with impunity. He's right. He says some words there that Karen Bass is too stupid to understand. But yeah, Los Angeles and California are demanding the nullification of the election results of federal law of national sovereignty and the constitutional command of one national government. Yeah. And again, I really wouldn't care if they first decided to formally leave the union. So fuck them. That would help the Republicans because California is always going to vote blue. Let them be their own country. I'm fine with that. They can make it all transgender, import everyone from Haiti into California. I don't really care. We just keep those people out of California so they can't come into the United States and they can have fun with it. So, yeah, that is the situation there. Let's see here. Do I have time for this? Because there's this good thing. I wanted to do this. This was years ago, but Pat Buchanan was really on the ball here, and I wanted to show you guys this. But he wrote about this, the suicide of a superpower, and this was years ago.
Will America survive to the year 2025?
So this is like, I think in the 90s or something, but here we go.
All right. When you write a chapter in a book called The End of White America,
right,
and you write in that chapter, white America is an endangered species, and then you talk about the white population will begin to shrink with present birth rates slowly.
And it was funny when Pat Buchanan was saying this was very verboten, and official people of the Republican Party, they would never mention white except to being ashamed by it.
Disappear. You talk about Mexico moving north, et cetera, et cetera. You know what's coming next.
Well,
you know,
it's what's come before.
That's true. And
yeah.
But I want you to explain it in your words, because I think people will interpret it, Pat, is that, oh, so white America is going, so that means the end of America? Are you saying that
Yeah. The people make the country. That'd be like if you replace the Japanese people in Japan, would that be the end of Japan? Yeah. I mean, you still may have the country called Japan. You could even have the same flag, but it would no longer be Japan. It'd be another country. Let's say Haitians. So let's say all the Japanese were leaving and Haitians were moving in. And then it became this thought experiment, 100% Haitian. Would Japan, even if they still had the same flag and everything, would it be in any way Japanese? No, it'd be Haitian. They'd be eating mud. That's how it would be.
Minorities are bad for the country.
No, not at all. No, not at all. But the title is taken from the title of an article, a cover article in Atlantic magazine. Exactly. The End of White America. What does it mean? And the fellow wrote it about what does it mean for the culture? And so I looked at it from what does it mean for the United States of America when white Americans in 2041.
It was funny because back here, just 10, 15 years ago when they did this interview, maybe longer, 20 years ago, they were clutching their pearls about the idea, oh no, we can't have white interests, that's evil. You don't see that much anymore.
Become a minority in the country along with Asians American minority, African Americans, and Hispanic Americans. And you try to visualize what's going to happen, and America's going to look very much like California right now. And what does that mean? California is bankrupt. Its bond rating is the lowest of any place. Los Angeles, half the people there don't speak English in their own homes, 5 million people. And you've got all the problems of crimes. You've got a black-brown war among the underclass, as one sheriff described it, in the prisons and in the gangs. And people are leaving California.
Remember that video I showed you of Norway? What a beautiful place that looked. This is what you have when you have a homogenous society. It can be very peaceful and it's just wonderful. We don't need this. This was artificially put into our country by people who hate us.
And it's the old tax consumers are coming in. Now, these are not bad or evil people, even the ones who are legal. They're coming to work, many of them. They're coming for a better life. But the truth is, they are bankrupting the state of California because of that divide you mentioned between taxpayers and tax consumers. And what happens when all of America is like that? When every American city is like L.A.? Who said, David, what's his name for the New York Times?
Which one?
Columnist for the New York Times.
One of your favorites. David Brooks?
Brooks, he said, Tom Joad has given up. He went to California. John Judas, of the New Republic, he said, I don't think California is going to make it. Now, there are an awful lot of liberals and others in there say, and what I'm saying is, look, what California is today, America is in 2041 if we don't change.
2041, that's kind of, we're going to be breaking apart by then.
Of course.
And also by then, we'll have the financial hit because we won't be able to pay our debt.
You really the two chapters together, The End of White America, Demographic Winter, which you talk about people of European descent are not only in a relative, but a real decline. They're
he was right about that.
Aging, dying, disappearing, and you say this is a big crisis for the West. Here's my question. We do break down. Now, people forget this. We break down demographically every poll. We break down every election demographically how African Americans vote, white Americans
Right.
vote. So this is common.
Right.
I guess the issue or the argument that you're making, though, is what? That the value
Politically.
system is different because 90% of African Americans traditionally, historically vote Democratic.
Ever since '64, correct.
And the Hispanic vote goes what demographically?
It goes 60 to 70. The Hispanics go 60 to 70% Democratic. Asian Americans, which is a bit of a surprise, 60 to 70%. African Americans, 90 to 100%.
And Jewish, about 70% Democrat.
Or 90 to 95%. That's what Barack Obama got. What I'm saying is, if that is half of the country, Republicans will never win another election. And I mentioned California for this reason. Demographically, what California is will tell you also what California is politically. The Republican Party, Nixon and Reagan won California 9 times. Nixon lost it once. Republican can't win California today. It's not because the people are evil, but they are democratic. They depend on government, they believe in government, and they vote for the party of government. And when Texas goes the same way, and whites are a minority in Texas, when it becomes predominantly, overwhelmingly Hispanic, it is going to become predominantly Democratic.
What do you then say to
That's
people
the end
that
of the Republican Party.
Well, what do you say to those people that say, there's Pat Buchanan, he's you know, no, what do you say to them? They say, why don't you break it down along belief system rather than racial lines?
Well,
because I'll answer this, because beliefs come from race for the many part. We're not a blank slate. So culture comes from your ethnicity, from your biology. That's why you can't, this guy, he's trying to do the everyone's a blank slate. And this was a lie. You could bring all these people in and they'll become white people. Or let's say you could import 1 million Haitians in that little Norwegian town. And because they're in Norway, they'll magically change and they'll have a great honor system. That's not going to happen. People are different. There's genetic differences between us, just like you see with different dog breeds. They're all dogs, but they have different behaviors. And people have different behaviors. So it's sort of ignorant to suggest otherwise.
Well, I agree. I mean, I'll tell you why many African Americans vote Democratic is because, you know, the federal government ended slavery. It ended segregation. It supported civil rights.
Never gets credit for it.
Affirmative action. But the feds did that. And they tend to believe in the federal government as a good, powerful, positive institution. It's on our side. And Hannity and Buchanan and these guys are constantly knocking it. And that's why we're against them. So that's an understandable position. But what I'm saying is, it is a realistic statement to say that that's going to be the future as well.
Right.
Yeah, he's right.
Because I look at the value system of many of my friends from all backgrounds, diverse backgrounds.
All right, he's talking about now his little anecdotes. He knows the base black guy or whatever, right? And so he's doing this argument. Again, this is old and people laugh at this sort of thing, I think, by now because it's been done to death. So that doesn't, your exceptions don't disprove the rule. All right. So I think I haven't watched this, but I bet he's going to go down that road.
And they think as I do.
Well, that's nice. I don't understand the point of that, though. The point is not your exceptions, is what the majority do. That's the point. And can you, there's 2 different ways you can look at this. You could either deny biology and think everyone's exactly the same, or you can accept that there are biological differences and that shows up in how they live, their spirit of how they're living, and their culture. Culture comes from biology. It's downstream from biology. It's just not magic. And I don't think there's any debate about it. We see this around the world. And yet, yeah, you can have your great exception in how they assimilate in. Yeah, that's nice. But that doesn't disprove this thesis that when you get a certain majority, then it will revert back. So you could probably get a guy from Haiti. Let's say one person from Haiti that goes to that Norwegian town. Maybe he would be able to control himself because of peer pressure and so forth. Okay, but what does that prove? It doesn't prove anything. If you brought them all over, that's not going to be that way anymore.
And
let me make one quick point on that.
Go ahead.
70% of African Americans in California voted for Proposition 8 to outlaw gay marriage. 5% voted for John McCain. So you're right. The value system, in many cases, the African Americans are the most churched people in America, but politically, in politics, Trump's values in many
politically,
cases.
can the different demographic groups move over to limited government?
No, This is this is in a crude way what he's saying, and this was a big belief. Can these other people become whites? Is what he's saying. I know they have a different skin color, but can they be made into white people? And for them, the basic answer is no. I mean, it may be on an individual basis. I mean, they have the term acting white. Yeah, sure, individuals can, but in mass, can they? No, they can't. And we have enough examples. I don't know any exceptions, right? And it's even different cultures, even within the race. If you bring them in, they're not going to remain the same. So if you bring a bunch of Indians, let's say to Canada, are they going to act like Canadians? Or are they going to act like Indians? They're going to act like Indians. This is how we are as humans. And to deny that, this is the biggest difference between right and left, is the understanding of reality. And the left and much of the so-called right, because they don't want to be called racist, they believe in something that's fundamentally not true, of everyone's equal. And that's just not the case. You don't see equality in nature. There's differences. And if you don't accept those differences, you're just in fantasy land. This is why we get the whole, if a guy wears a dress, he can be a woman, and girls are just as strong as men, all that bullshit, is because they're trying to believe in this equality that doesn't exist in nature. And so this is what this guy's trying to do. Oh, can't they become like us? Well, the answer is no.
To lower taxes?
Now you're talking. That's why I say if you have a moratorium on immigration, take all the immigrants that came in, the Jews, the Irish, the Italians, the Poles, they all voted Democratic, and so we shut off immigration in 1924. By the 1950s, they were moving, and when we talked to Nixon and I, we were working, Nixon said, we're going to get an Italian on the Supreme Court. They're ready to break our way, because these are folks, their kids came up, they're...
All right, I disagree with Pat Buchanan here, because he's comparing like Italians are the same as like Haitians. And you're right. Some of these, this is the problem in diversity. The closer you are, the more this can happen genetically. The more genetic difference, the more impossible, more difficult it becomes. So if, for example, this country was founded by English, well, could we accept Germans? Yeah. I mean, but there was even some issue there because they had a different language. They had to assimilate, learn English. They had a little different culture, but in general, ethnically, very close. Our bloodlines aren't really that different. Similar IQ, similar behaviors, a little bit different. So that can work a little bit. How about French? Well, yeah, you can work it. How about Italians? Yeah, a little bit more difficult, but you can make it work. But when you get further and further out, it becomes harder and harder to so-called assimilate in. That is the argument. So comparing like Haitians to the Irish is stupid. They're stupid. There's a big difference there. Irish can assimilate a lot easier than Haitians, just like Norwegians. Like, would we have a problem if we had a bunch of, you see that little town in Norway? What if they should all flood into your small town, wherever you live? I'd be happy. It wouldn't be a problem because they have similar values. It's not hard for them. I mean, they may have to pick up English, but they could probably easily, it wouldn't be a problem. So that is the fundamental flaw. And I understand why he's saying that, because he doesn't want to be called racist, but you got to get over that. You got to deal with the truth.
They're doing well, although they got school, their kids in school, and they're saying we're paying taxes. Wait a minute, our taxes are going up. Maybe we ought to take a look at this other party, but you need time.
Well, no, it's more than taxes or economic policy. It's having our home with similar values or similar culture. Don't bring everything back to taxes. Like, oh, eventually they'll vote Republican and have low taxes.
For folks to move out of that poverty and move up into the middle class. Once they move into the middle class, into the taxpayer category, Sean, they're available.
That's not the case. We've seen that. With Black Americans, that haven't happened that way. It's just not the case. It's a fantasy. And I like Buchanan, but I understand what he's doing here. It doesn't work anyway, by the way. It doesn't work anyway. They'll still call him a racist, but he's trying to do a little nuanced thing there. But yeah. Is this a little too late, or is Ramsey happy with Matt Walsh and Charlie Kirk here? This is what I initially, because Nick Fuentes, he put this together deceptively. Shame on Nick. And I retweeted what Nick said. because they're basically saying the exact same thing. But Charlie Kirk was just following up because it looked like they had were following the same script. So when I saw that, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I was fooled. Nick Fuentes fooled me. Nick was being deceptive. So I deleted my tweet. But it's time to ban third world immigration. Yes. Legal or illegal. Yes. So that's the key word is third world. I'm okay with first world people. So I'm okay with Norwegians coming in, but I don't want Haitians or people from Venezuela. We reached our limit. We have a huge cultural, educational, housing, financial, and essential services problem to fix because of it. We need a net zero immigration moratorium with the ban of all third worlders. I support that 100%. And it's amazing you get people like Charlie Kirk and Matt Walsh saying that, because just a few years ago, as like a Z-Man said, if I would have shown up to one of their conferences and had that opinion, they would have called security and told me I needed it. I couldn't be there because I wasn't part of their values. All right. That's what they would have done. And now they're sounding like RAMZPAUL. It's just kind of funny, but that's good. I'm happy about it, actually. I'm happy they're sounding like me now. Better late than never. Better late than never. So that is good that they're doing this. So good for that. All right. Let's just see here. I want to make sure I got everything. And then tomorrow, what's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Wednesday. So we're going to have the show with Z-Man. I got a couple of power chats too. Louis Barrow, deadly force would be authorized by Biden and Harris White House if the right rioted it like this for any reason. Well, we know that at January 6th, they didn't set anything on fire, and they still used deadly force. Tony, and by the way, the media called it a riot, insurrection, and they supported Ashley Babbitt being murdered. Tony, Rams, the fact that the protesters hold up Mexican flags, not American ones, confirm what you always said. They retain the nation they came from, not the one they have their feet on. They never did see themselves as American. No, they're Mexicans who happen to live in America. That's the difference. They're not one of us. They're a different nation. And the Mexican flag, even though they don't want to live in the country of Mexico because it's shitty, but that's a racial pride. And so that's their flag for the racial pride. This is all race. And people get uncomfortable talking about it, but it's the truth. That's how humans are set up. And it's time, and it looks like, because we see Charlie Kirk and Matt Walsh, conservatives are finally getting out of their delusion that we're all the same. We're not all the same. People are different. That's just a fact. And I know you have a best friend or you have your little anecdote of this, base black guy. Great. Okay. It happens. I get it. But that doesn't disprove the thesis that we're different and we need our own homelands. That's why we have countries, right? That's why it's just not one big country for the whole world. We have individual countries. That's a good thing. God made the nations. The Tower of Babel, right? That was a metaphor of how God said globalism is evil. So don't sin against God. Be against globalism. Thank you, though, for Tony. I appreciate that. And that is a thing. Okay. Let me see. Did I get super chat here? Let me get this. I have another super chat. So thank you for this. And let me scroll down here. Here it is. Okay. Thank you. All cultures are not equal. Remember the British building infrastructure in Rhodesia and South Africa? Once the natives took over, it went to hell. Right. And I get that. And a lot of this is I think is like a lot of people, and that's a good point. But people bring up like, oh, some cultures are just not compatible because that's a little safer than saying some ethnicities just aren't compatible. Oh, that's racist. But where does culture come from? It comes from ethnicity. It comes from biology. Not 100%, but quite a bit. And we see this around the world, right? So like when you have all the Africans go to London, they don't act like white British, even though the theory is they should, right? But they don't, because biology is real. And that is the key thing on there. So we have to be honest about that if we're going to fix the situation. Otherwise, we're going to be endlessly, well, what we need to do, we need more education or more money or whatever, and that will make them like us. No, you're not going to make them like us. They're different. In fact, that's sort of patronizing. Allow them to be them, and that's okay, but they don't need to be them around us, right? They can have their own homelands, and they can do what they want in their own homelands. And they have different values. So their biology creates their culture. Their culture is not compatible with us. And it's just that simple. And that's how we have to look at it, right? And that's how in America, always looked at it that way. Before 1965, yeah, we take a Norwegian before we take some guy from the Congo. That just made sense. It's a lot more compatible, be able to live in our society and function. If you bring them in from these other places, well, you see the result. You see the result, looting shoe stores, burning cars. You see the result. It's not compatible with our culture. And, they may be happier with their more material stuff, and they have clean water and working toilets. But I think fundamentally they're not happy either, obviously. I think they'd be better in their own society. And we need to leave their societies alone, not bother with them. So, that is a situation. So I think these riots, again, are very eye-opening for a lot of people. And I think the left realizes they have some optics problems with them, but that's good. That's good. So that's where we are. Guys, thank you so much for being here. It was a good show. Tonight we have our roundtable. If you're part of the Substack, if you haven't, join the Substack. And Wednesday night, I have the show with Z-Man. Really looking forward to that. We're going to talk about propaganda in movies and television and how that's done deliberately. And thank you guys. I appreciate it. Talk to you guys later.